Everyone thinks they're too smart to fall for a phishing email. But meanwhile, AI just generated a perfect clone of your boss's voice, scraped your LinkedIn in minutes, and is currently drafting a Teams chat that'll have Carolyn wiring money before lunch. Here's the thing nobody's telling you. Hackers don't need to break in. Not anymore. They just need to log in as you. They need you to let them in. And this year, more than ever before, AI is doing all the heavy lifting. We just got our hands on the Dune Security Intel report and sat down with their senior AI engineer. What's it showing us? It's not theory. It's not FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, or any fear-mongering. Never before published data on exactly how AI is being weaponized right now to target small business leaders, your team, your family, your children, and every communication channel you think is safe. We're talking deepfake video calls, AI-generated spearfishing at scale, beautifully built web pages that harvest your credentials like a Midwestern sunset, all built in minutes. So enjoy these stories all the way through, because once you see how this actually works and how fast it happens, you'll be shocked at how legitimate it all looks. And it'll have you second guessing every site you've visited in the last couple weeks. And maybe, just maybe, we can actually change how this industry thinks about human risk. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and now the show. All right, well, welcome everybody to Cybercrime Junkies. I am your host, David Morrow, and in the studio today, I'm very excited. We've got Kyle Ryan, Senior Manager of AI and Engineering at Dune Security, and they just released the Dune Security Intel Report of 2025, really focusing on AI's application in social engineering, something we talk about regularly on the show. Kyle, welcome to the studio, my friend.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to talk about the many ways attackers are using AI in 2025.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. So a little background on you. Tell us how you broke in to cybersecurity. What's your origin story, real briefly, and then give us a high level of Dune Security.
Yeah, totally. So I've always started my career in data science, and I've held a variety of different roles over the years involving just regular data scientists, ML ops engineer, data engineer, et cetera. And I didn't really make my way into cybersecurity until recently when I joined Dune Security, initially as their founding engineer and first employee. And, now, held many titles, done many different roles since then. But I always had a passion for the way AI could be used both for good and bad, and then also
right?
Seeing the dangers that those systems could do is kind of what inspired me to join Dune. Because originally I was thinking about going the PhD route and considering focusing all of my research in the safety and trust of these systems.
So when you were, just a personal question, when you were considering doing all this, were your parents like, what the heck is a data scientist? Were they like, those degrees didn't exist when we were younger? Or did they see you develop and have a passion for it?
Yeah. My dad was always pretty tech savvy.
Okay, he was?
He saw the title and was, knew that generally it's just kind of like another type of computer programmer. But yeah, so kind of a little bit of mystery there. You're just kind of crunching numbers in the background and then building programs that do that at scale. And, you see the data go from that raw, messy input that all the real world systems generate to nice, clean little items on a dashboard.
That's cool. Yeah. I can see why it's so fascinating to so many people and why it's in such demand.
Yeah, certainly.
So tell me about Dune Security. Great threat intel, leveraging AI to help defend and educate and raise awareness for organizations. Walk us through it.
Yeah. So we've seen a huge evolution over the past couple decades of phishing. Back in the early days of
yeah.
the internet. They were, the standard scams of, hey, it's your uncle. I need some money. I'll pay you back handsomely.
Right.
Now what we're seeing is these extremely well-tailored, very targeted spearfishing emails, which maybe even 5 years ago would be made by a threat actor, personally with their own hands on keyboard.
Based on their human effort for research of the organization, the region, etc. Now AI can pull all of that quickly.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, with just a few API calls, I can, grab information about anyone with a public profile using Perplexity, get a nice little report on them, feed that in downstream to, ChatGPT or Claude, and generate a perfect phishing email from end to end. And it would look and feel like a normal email.
It uses the syntax and the language, the local regional flavor, right?
Yeah, definitely. And, one example I like to use is I'm also an adjunct professor at Fordham University, and if someone were to try to phish me or find information about me online, it would be pretty easy to do so. And, find information that I do have like some ties with academia still, send a phishing email with a, zip file that contains the payload. It could be, hey, I've been working on this research. It's related to, could even be AI spearfishing or deepfakes. I thought you might find it interesting. If there's room to collaborate, let's chat. And that could be end to end. And, these systems, like any of the guardrails on the big model providers, they're not going to pick that up as a social engineering attempt because it's going to look and feel exactly like normal business.
Right. Yeah. And that's what makes it so effective.
Yeah, definitely.
So how are you guys in your AI agent architects? So what does that mean for people that are still dabbling in the initial generative AI space? And how is that being applied in raising awareness for people?
Yeah. So I think we want to give all of our users of Dune the most authentic threat experience, which is utilizing the strongest models and the best tools to be able to run a simulation against the users and have it be ultra tailored to them, and then give them that moment where they feel like they need to, wake up to the threats in 2025. What that looks like in actuality is we have a few tools on our platform which will use an LLM, and we'll have standard prompts. We'll pull in information about the user, using OSINT or things that we'll collect during the onboarding process to generate a spearfishing email that's targeted to that person and their role. If it's somebody in sales, for example, we could have that decide to send something related to Salesforce. And now some of the internal tools that one of the AI engineers on my team, Apoorva, developed was it could take that Salesforce asset that we generate. This is relevant with all the attacks on trying to harvest Salesforce credentials we saw this past summer, where it takes that asset, we plug it into an agent, and essentially we'll have these LLMs that are chained together using a variety of open source tooling that will pass input and progressively build one after another. There will be an agent for code generation, code quality, vulnerabilities, etc. The same tools that I'd use productively in my day-to-day workflow as a software engineer. But now we're saying, hey, we have this email. We want to generate a login portal for it, pass in the prompt, pass in the HTML for the email, and then it'll go through and it'll generate a phishing credential harvesting page based off of that initial asset. Yeah, all it takes is
it's all done through AI. So not only the phishing email that is custom tailored, right, and appears very spear phishing like, meaning very specific to that organization, but it can be done at scale, right? And then when they click or they get directed to what they believe would be the trusted vendor's site or whatever it is, right? Whatever the government agency site, whatever the phishing, whatever the context that's being discussed in the email, it'll automatically generate that. And then they will log in with their credentials, and you'll be able to harvest them, which is what an attacker would do. But this is a simulation to show people exactly what is being done.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Is that
exactly?
Am I getting it?
Yeah, you're spot on.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
We were essentially able to automate from end to end the generation of the phishing asset, the generation of the credential harvesting portal, and then the last mile is just wiring everything in. But we're able to and save the vast majority of our engineers' time by using an automated system. And the hackers will do the same thing, where now they can scale up their operations X, 100X. It's really just limited by the hardware that they're able to get access to.
Wow. Well, and it's really a perfect storm for cybercrime, right? I mean, cybercrime's the third largest economy, right? There's the US, China, cybercrime in terms of trillions of dollars in revenue. And then you add up all the European countries and everything else, and they don't even add up to cybercrime. It's scary. But with that comes that early adopter mentality where they are just willing to take massive risks, whereas businesses trying to defend go slow and they're cautious, right? Rightly so, but it serves as a disadvantage right now. Yeah.
And, we're always in that game of hackers and defenders playing cat and mouse, trying to get the lead on one another. But, the best way to protect your organization is to just start getting your users educated on that initial foothold of social engineering. And even just beyond spearfishing, we've seen a variety of novel attacks, start appearing in 2025, like a series of pig butchering scams, all taking place over encrypted messaging apps like WhatsApp, Signal, Viber.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that in the Intel threat report. So let's talk about that real quick. So first of all, let's define terms. You mentioned OSINT before. That's open source intelligence. That's like searching available things online. Some of them are paid, some of them are free. But the point is it's all the available information. It's that intelligence. It's creating a dossier on somebody, right? Or an organization. Is that fair? Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay. Spot on.
Okay. And what was the other thing we were just talking about? Oh,
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Most business leaders have a fatal flaw which results in their growth being interrupted or stopped terminally. They ignore the mountain they're about to crash into, distracted by the focus on revenue growth. Until it's too late. Don't become another fatal business statistic. Keep your cybersecurity modern so you can grow without interruption. Stay competitive. Get NetGain. Stay focused on your growth and funding. While NetGain keeps your technology always available with expert-level cybersecurity services to stop breaches in their tracks, all at a fraction of the cost of managing it yourself. Don't wait for a technology disaster to interrupt and cripple your growth. Speak with a specialist today. Contact NetGain Technologies today at 844-777-6278 or reach out online at netgainit.com. That's 844-777-6278 and netgainit.com. Grow your business uninterrupted. Contact NetGain today.
I think pig butchering.
Yeah, pig butchering. Sorry. Yeah. It's I'm just starting my coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pig butchery, explain to the listeners what that is. People hear that or they see that in posts or in reports and they don't necessarily know. It's not actually hurting an animal. It is really fattening up a victim, right? And then taking their savings or the sensitive information that you're trying to get, right? That's what the phrase means. Is that accurate?
Yeah, spot on. Yeah, essentially it's just prepping the victim to then have like one larger ask down the line. So it's, easing your way in, getting them socially comfortable, getting them conversing with you. And then after a certain amount of time is then the adversary is going to, make that initial ask. And maybe it's something big to kind of shock them a little bit. And then they'll follow up with something smaller, which is actually the real target. Or maybe they'll say, hey, let's just do this one small ask, get this little bit of data out and, we'll make it worth your while just to like build trust and show that, we're serious about this. What real security engineer is going to send money my way? But from a business perspective, if your employee is sending payment information just to get that initial like money sent over to build trust, in a lot of cases, that in of itself is fireable. So we'll run simulations as well that are emulating those threats to see who may be an insider threat at your organization willing to take a bribe to exchange data or, release sensitive information about an upcoming M&A or things of that nature.
Oh, and in some industries too, there's a higher risk of insider information. When you think of a small business that's doing insurance or something, very commoditized. Insider risk isn't all that big. It happens. But when you think of, the first thing that comes to mind is like the Abbott and Baxters of the world, like pharmacy, like pharmaceuticals, where like that intellectual property, those formulas, they're worth billions of dollars. And, being able to bribe an employee to give up information is a very serious threat.
Yeah, exactly. And we usually see, our largest customers in organizations or ones in highly regulated industries, or, as you were saying, a lot of intellectual property that's very sensitive are the types of companies that want to simulate these types of threats and see who in their organization is vulnerable.
Yeah, your client list at Dune is phenomenal. You have like Culligan, Warner Brothers, Hugo Boss. I was just looking at it. I'm like, holy crap, you guys are really, really hitting it hard. That's great.
Yeah, it's been a long journey. That's
exciting.
From that.
Yeah,
great,
since I've been along. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been great seeing the growth as the founding engineer, seeing that initial 0 customers, no product, to now 2.5, almost 3 years later, servicing
that's
some of the
fast
largest
too. That's a fast growth. That's phenomenal. That's outstanding. So let's talk about security awareness training over the years has really evolved. Traditional, boring, PowerPoint to death, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, like not very effective. And then, there's the KnowBe4s of the world, which have their place. Like they've got great resources, good talent that works there. But there's limitations, right? They're evolving too. But what makes Dune so interesting is your multi-channel approach, because that's really what cybercriminal gangs, and I call them gangs, it's not like they wear matching jackets and stuff, but like the scattered spiders of the world, and they are doing massive amounts of intel up front. They're using, people that are very familiar with Western culture. They know what to say to get things done, and they use all the different channels, right? They'll use phishing, smishing, voice solicitation, AI deepfakes. They'll use all of it, right, to get what they're going for. And you guys kind of address all of that in your platform.
Yeah, and if there is a scattered spider merch order, maybe they do get their matching jackets.
They could. You can see what it would look like too. We can all envision it. And they're younger kids. A couple of them that have been busted. You're like, oh yeah, these guys were working on logos and stuff. You know it.
Definitely.
You absolutely know it.
Yeah, but what we've seen is that if you want to go after the crown jewels of a company and get the principal cloud engineer, the VP of revenue, if you want to get someone of that archetype, just sending a regular phishing email or even just the AI Spearfishing emails, it's likely not enough. They're well.
You got to pick up the phone. You got to pick up the phone. You've got to talk to them in the channels. First of all, you have to know what channels they're using. Are they using Slack? Are they using Teams? Are they, Are they using Salesforce? They can find that out easily. And then from there, how do they get to them? I mean, you can get all of that stuff. You can get somebody's personal cell number through legitimate channels. You know what I mean? Through Zoom Info and Cognizant and all these like legitimate subscriptions will give you the people's cell numbers, and now you can attack them that way.
Yeah, and I even downloaded a few tools for sales, like web extensions on Chrome, and I can go to someone's LinkedIn profile, get their personal email, phone number, and it's a free Chrome extension. Yeah,
I know.
But you get all that,
and really people don't know. That's like it's really shocking how much data is out there.
Yeah. There's so much. And even if you fired something off that's relatively generalized to someone, if it's a well-timed, here's an Okta reset your password email, I deliver that in someone's inbox simultaneously. I also call them. Even if they pick up or not, leave a voicemail. You can use a conversational agent to physically chat with them and say, hey, I shot this email over to your inbox. I just need you to reset your password. My boss is all over me about this. Can you just try to get it done by the end of the day?
And you can spoof the number so it's calling from the IT vendor or from Okta or from whoever you're trying to be from.
Yeah.
It's very believable.
Yeah. It sounds like a real person.
Yeah.
Entirely too. It's indistinguishable. Like I think there's a company out there that does text to speech and speech to text called Sesame AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you pull up that website and talk to it. It sounds like a person. It'll say and like and pause and think and, you know, have all those strange little intonations that are normal in someone's voice.
And 11 Labs for voice is outstanding. Like 11 Labs incredible. Can just, it's incredible. You can do all of the little idiosyncrasies and inflections in the voice. You can modulate it. It's really quite shocking.
Yeah. And you can wire it directly into Twilio too. So you could set it up to call people from numbers you have reserved over there.
Unbelievable. So what's happening in the real world now is you're not just getting that phishing email. You might also get a call, a text, other things. But then you could also get, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can also get a calendar invite to jump on a Teams video call or a Zoom video call and then be AI deepfaked, right? And so that's very surprising for a lot of people because it's a trusted vendor. They've met them before. Maybe they haven't seen them in the last week or so, but it looks exactly like them. The deepfakes now are remarkable. They're virtually undetectable by the human eye if they're using a good deepfake generator. And in the deepfake detection platforms, in your experience, are they effective? I know that Perry Carpenter over at KnowBe4 wrote the book Fake, and he researches this. He's been on the news kind of talking about some of the deepfake detectors showing that they're just not there yet. They're not perfect, like, you know, because they'll generate some that they know are deepfakes. They'll put it up there and the deepfake detector will say that it's real. And it's like, no, it's not. I just made it.
Yeah.
So what do you guys, how are you guys educating? You guys are raising awareness about deepfakes, right? Showing what they are, how they're being leveraged. And then how are you, what's the Dune security approach to that?
Yeah. So I think companies doing great work in this space right now are Reality Defender. They've shown that they're able to detect the vast majority of deepfakes. It's always tough because, you know, defenders have to win every single time and the attackers only have to win once. Yeah. So, you know, we're constantly fighting an uphill battle. Models are being retrained to always, you know, try to get the most sophisticated models like covered and, you know, detected. At Dune, we just focus primarily on like education. You know, if you talk with someone long enough, the deep fake likely will bleed through. There's some that are ultra high quality. The threat actor has access to a lot of compute. Maybe they have, you know, a gaming computer with a really strong NVIDIA graphics card that they're using to, you know, use the deep fake. But a lot of the times, you know, they're not running the top of the line hardware. It'll be, you know, only an okay GPU. It'll start to glitch out a bit. One thing that we recommend in our training videos is if you just hold your hand in front of your face and move it a bit, you know, it'll ruin the mesh that's getting applied to your face to put on, you know, somebody else's face, and it'll start to glitch a bit. Or maybe if I put it up here, it'll start to follow my hand up because it just anchors onto some new points. You know, little things like that, or asking them to like hold up a certain amount of like fingers, or, you know,
just to otherwise show that they're human, right? And plus, at the end of the day, before doing anything that would be vulnerable, verify it through a legitimate channel, right? Like at the end of the day, doesn't it still come down to verification, like human verification through a reliable channel? Meaning, if it's your boss on video telling you to wire transfer money, even if they get on a Teams call, walk down the hall and just check and just say, before I do this, because I could get fired if I actually do this and it's wrong, or we could get sued, or I just don't feel comfortable, right? Like people have to trust their gut. Like do that. Or if you're working remote, like text them at the number that you know that they are, right? Like actually pick up the phone and speak to them live at a number that you know that they're going to be at. Is that what does that make sense still?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I always ask these obvious things. It's obvious to you, but I'm just trying to keep up so I can educate the audience. And I'm part of the FBI's InfoGuard, so we do a lot of live security awareness trainings and demos. So I just want to like make sure I'm at least saying it right myself.
Yeah, no. Everything you're saying is all the correct things to do. Always verify.
At least for today. Like six months from now, I might have to go back and be like, that video's out of date. Like, don't do that.
If you can physically access them in person, always verify, because until there's cloning technology, hey, like that'll be the best thing. But you never know if someone's email or their Teams account or Slack account could all be compromised.
Right.
And then the threat actor is just like, hey, yeah, it's me on like one of the other channels. People share passwords. Maybe they did a SIM swap and, reset, their MFA code to a new device. And then we're able to break in or something along those lines. I remember a couple of months ago, a friend of mine, his Instagram account got compromised. The hacker was messaging his friends and trying to tackle or like get access to more Instagram accounts.
Right.
For whatever reason. So, I had a suspicion just because, my buddy, he'll usually message me on WhatsApp or Signal. And I saw this request come in. I thought it was kind of weird. So I was like, hey, our friend that we just went rock climbing with the other weekend, he shaved his beard a new way. What did it look like? And then he didn't answer. And it was sort of a trick question where I was like, oh, I guess the joke here is that my friend that we were with is always completely clean shaven. So when the guy's like, oh, he shaved it into a goatee. And I was like, okay, well, I know you weren't with me because you would have remembered that. And our friend who isn't really that active on social media either. So just asking to verify even some like personal things that just the two of you would know.
Right. That's exactly right. And what's so interesting when you look back at history, like theft and organized crime and scams long preceded the technology that we're using today, right? Mm-hmm. And the way to verify is still the same way today, right? You still have to ask something that only that person would know. Mm-hmm. And what you just demonstrated was I asked them something that if it really was my buddy, they're going to know what the answer is. They're going to be like, dude, what are you talking about? He's always clean shaven.
Yeah.
That's your buddy, right? But this person was like, oh, yeah, we shaved it into a goatee, just taking a guess.
Yeah. At that point, it's just caught red-handed because, you throw out that trick question out there and then they're not able to answer it. And then if there's something, everyone's company has their own acronyms. I worked at a few places earlier in my career where, we had 10 different departments, each had their own acronym for it.
Yep.
And, I'd be there even in my first couple months of that company. I would still be having to go back and check like a reference guide on what each one stood for. A hacker isn't going to put in that same effort to be, oh, this is how they refer to customer success at this company.
Right. So that's a really good point, right? Yeah, that's a good point. Like that's a big red flag. When somebody goes like, at my company, we call them client success managers, CSMs. So if somebody goes, oh, well, this is Bruce, I'm the account manager, right? Like we don't use that phrase. That should stand out, right? Like that there is a red flag. You need to verify through a legitimate channel. Yeah. And you guys you just mentioned SIM swapping. Let's talk about that real quick. So explain to the audience kind of what it is and how it gets done. Because it is, I mean, obviously in the crypto space, there have been massive thefts where people have access to their private keys, which is really what controls all the money at the end of the day on crypto investments. And through their phone, groups will go and, take over their phone and then get those private keys. And there's been a lot of very high profile people that have had hundreds of millions of dollars stolen that way. Walk us through kind of like how that happens and how you educate people about it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of cases now where someone's MFA code, multi-factor authentication, is linked to their phone and their text. So it'll be, you sign into Amazon and it says, hey, enter, you have your phone number. It'll send you a code, 6 digits over text to you. It comes in as an SMS. You plug that in, and then you're signed into the account. There's data leaks pretty much daily nowadays, if not every week. So the odds that there is a compromised password out there, most people share passwords as well. So the thought process is that hackers likely have these and they don't have to even phish you for them. But if you're protected by MFA, then, even if they sign into your account, they get blocked because they need that code. Where SIM swapping comes into play is that the SIM card in your phone is going to be how they connect your physical device to the phone number with your cell carrier. So using OSINT, if you know someone's phone number, which we just discussed earlier, how easy it is to find, you can also find the carrier. So if we find out that, that someone, our target, has T-Mobile, what these hackers will do, and what, is a pretty common and least resistance way to do it, is they'll actually break into something if they don't have any, I guess, other type of access point into a telecom provider. They'll actually just break into the store, and most of the attendees will have that iPad where, if you go and buy a new phone, you want to transfer your phone number to it, they can initiate that on the iPad or tablet that's in the store. So when these hackers go to SIM swap, they're actually taking crime into the real world, breaking into these stores.
So they'll physically break in like burglars into the stores.
Yeah, in broad daylight.
I didn't even know they were doing that. That's news to me. So that's interesting. I know that there have been cases where they've bribed some store employees for access to that iPad, because an employee making 15 an hour, if you offer them 30 grand or 50 grand, they're going to do it. Right. And that's nothing compared to what you're going to be able to get as a criminal from that. And then there's also calling up and socially engineering some of the T-Mobile employees, right? Like, I got a new phone. Can you help me set it up? Or my phone died or whatever. I need to set up my new SIM.
Yeah. And it'll kind of depend on the persona of the group. There are these small little hacking groups that just want to, you brought up crypto, for example. They just want to get access to someone's wallet and grab some money. And maybe it isn't even, someone who has a large amount of crypto in their account. But if you look at sophisticated threat actors, on the other hand, they're aligned with the techniques that you were just mentioning, where they'll call and try to get someone to, social engineer them to swap it to a new device. And that's what we saw with the MGM hacks in 2023 is, they called the help desk of their telecom provider and got them to issue that SIM swap just by social engineering them. But it'll vary in scales. There's kind of the lowest hanging fruit, maybe the more novice, less technical threat actors that'll do these smash and grabs on stores. And then there's the sophisticated threat actor using social engineering. Potentially they're even, they could be using a voice clone if there's voice verification as a fallback that they're able to trick and bypass now.
Yep, absolutely. Or you're seeing them, and you're seeing them contact the outsourced IT departments, right? The MSPs out there and the large VARs, and they're contacting them. I mean, they're calling the help desk, asking them to help them fix their MFA. And then with that, they're able to get into these systems. And I mean, the help desk people, there's a lot of organizations that don't really train their help desk in that aspect, right? Because they're not used to being targets. Yeah. And that's really important.
Yeah. And I would say it's new to this year at Dune as well, where we're now educating those frontline IT help desk workers, even if they're...
help is baked into the name. That's who they are, right? They want to help. When you hear about some of the breaches, I thought it was the Salesforce Zendex one or the MGM one where I actually heard the help desk call. They were just, it was one of 1,000 tickets they were working on, and they just wanted to help the person.
Yeah. Right? And it's part of their performance indicators too. They want to keep their jobs.
Just give me 5 stars. Give me a smile back green face, will you please? Smiley face. Yeah. That's what their goal is.
Yeah, exactly. And, that at that point, it's someone who's trained to make someone's life, help them out, like you said, and make their life easier, help them out of a tricky situation. And a lot of times when it's easy to social engineer people in this context is it's hard to distinguish somebody who, legitimately lost their password and is locked out and needs access to the system and is having a hard time and a rough day versus someone who's trying to social engineer them, because they'll pull on all the heartstrings as well. It'll be like, they'll play on their iPhone the sounds of a baby crying, and they're like, hey, I just had, this is just adding more things onto my already tough day.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite videos. I've always shown the video from DEF CON of the girl calling, I think it was Verizon or T-Mobile or whatever, with the crying baby in the background. Right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can't do that. Within 30 seconds, she was in, changed the password, locked the guy out of the account. It's like, wow. So convincing. So convincing. Yeah. And then what about insider threat? I see on Dune, you guys talk about really training people for insider threat. How do you approach that? Because that's a different element, right? I guess it's what we talked about earlier, the corporate espionage, the bribing of them, things like that. How do you raise awareness for an organization about that?
Yeah. And since it's a new threat, the entry point is just going to be direct experience. So what that looks like today in Dune technology wise is, you may be familiar with the big bust on the SIM farm that was in New York City that happened a couple of weeks ago. So there's a bunch of these, phones all on server racks plugged in, SIM cards, and the big bus like devices that were all ready to send out, tens of thousands of text messages.
Right.
In the Dune office, we have something similar, but it's purely for that white hat, testing and
simulated. Right.
Yeah. So we'll have a variety of accounts on WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, Viber. We'll even send out just regular SMS. And what we have wired into those is a conversational agent, where the way we've constructed like the whole architecture is, each conversation with a new user, it'll have memory and knowledge of who it is we're testing, what's their role, what organization are they a part of, what's the crown jewel that we want to go after. And then we have our own jailbroken models running on, Dune security GPUs. So we're able to have that fully jailbreaked capability. Because if I go to ChatGPT,
that's brilliant. Good job. That's really brilliant. So you're going on encrypted messaging channels, which everybody assumes is safe. You're leveraging AI to extrapolate the data, and then you have the jailbroken version to go after the flag that you're after.
Yeah, and it'll say at each step, how willing is this person? Just like a normal social engineer or hacker, it'll pivot its approach. If the person's not convinced, it'll say, hey, how about I just, send over your payment information, whether that's your PayPal, crypto wallet address, and just take a small bit of payment, give me a little bit of nugget of information. And if there's alignment there, then, hey, let's move forward. So we'll have a variety of agents that all have their own conversational style. They have knowledge of what exactly they want from the user in terms of the crown jewel, what the user likely knows, what function they're in. And then the AI fully steers the conversation across these, tens of thousands of users that we're able to send out to, and see if any of them are willing to accept a bribe or exfiltrate data as that initial show of good faith, and then we'll promise to send payment later. And then once we have it, or even, in some of our clients as well, it's like, unban this account, or, do you have the capability to do that? Are you willing? I'll pay you for it. And then we can see in the organization who's willing to accept bribes in exchange to exfiltrate data, unban accounts, or, whitelist an IP address on, inbound into one system. It could be a variety of different attacks, and we'll work with each of our clients to determine what the end goal is. And it's usually, we just base it off of the threat intelligence and we receive from their security team, and then we'll work with them to develop this persona.
That's phenomenal. And the one thing that's cool, what Dune is doing is, I was reading your threat intel stats here, and you guys did a massive survey of chief information security officers, CISOs, and like 0% of them are simulating attacks on these encrypted messaging channels. And you guys provide that, which is brilliant. And then, God, the stats are just crazy, right? So a major concern for a lot of people in charge of security at organizations is like leadership impersonation, right? And you guys address that in here, right? You guys show them all of the different ways that a supervisor... Now, would that be considered an inside threat, or it's really an outside threat? It's an external threat, isn't it? The deepfake aspect is really an external threat.
Yeah.
Insider threat is more espionage or just bribery, criminality. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's sort of one thing that can fall into like maybe an adjacent bucket is business email compromise or simulating where we don't actually have the account taken over, but we are impersonating someone. And if it's just over messaging, just be like, hey, like I'm a colleague or I'm a former colleague, and we want to see if they're willing to bite on that because, you know, they're just trying to find a foothold to build trust with the individual, as what we've seen in the threat intelligence that we analyze from CISOs. And we're just kind of building back up from what they're seeing. And who knows if even the messages in the threat intelligence, if it's actually someone who worked there previously or not. It could just be a hacker who's saying that to build trust. Maybe it was a former disgruntled employee who maybe wants access back in or to extort the company.
Unbelievable. And yeah, some of the findings from your report, we'll link the report and obviously Dune Security in the show notes. I encourage everybody to go check it out. Like it's really phenomenal. Like your approach is excellent. So definitely want to promote it. 91% of enterprises do not simulate attacks in collaboration platforms like Slack, Teams, Zoom chat. And it's happening all the time. And yet the traditional security awareness and raising of education for employees isn't even addressing that. They're still kind of focused on email, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. And it just boils down to that the industry needs to evolve. We've seen, you know, there's been breach after breach as a result of new uses of AI, hackers going to places that they haven't before to reach out to employees. And employees think they're safe. If someone messages me on Slack, you know, I might not even think twice. And if it's, you know, it's easy to be able to invite someone and get them into like a Slack Connect channel or a Teams Connect channel where it's you and an outside organization. You know, you're able to exchange messages and they're pretending they're a legitimate vendor. They're just making, you know, a new channel because they're onboarding a few new employees or something along those lines.
Something very socially acceptable, like something that is valid, that doesn't raise a flag in and of itself.
Yeah, exactly. And it just doesn't even raise an alarm bell because you're not used to it. And that's why at Dune, we always want to be developing, you know, red teaming, adversary emulation techniques to live as close to where the hackers are actually, like what they're actually doing in the wild.
Yeah, let me ask you this, just for my own edification. How would an external attacker gain access to an organization's internal, like Teams chat or Slack chat? How do they do that? Do they do that through a phishing email maybe where somebody clicks on something and then they get access and then they build it out? Is that typically how it does?
Yeah, it could kind of go two different ways. One could be, I have a target in mind. I want to compromise their Slack or their Teams account. So they'll try to phish them for their login. But one thing that we've seen more recently is that the first initial like outreach could be an invite to, you know, connect your Slack channel with an external organization. The hacker will set up like a sock puppet org. Maybe it looks like a vendor or it's someone who could be a client if they're meeting with someone who, you know, maybe handles customer data. And that first initial email invite to connect your Slack groups, it seems legitimate, you know, could be a real client. It is going to take you. Yeah, it's going to take you to a connect channel between your organization and theirs. At that point, You see the scary phishing email come in, or what you think may be a phishing email. You realize it's actually from Slack, and it will like create this external connection group, and your guard immediately goes down. And then now that they have you in this channel, you've built a little bit of trust. You already clicked on the first email. It was safe. Now you can chat with this hacker, or maybe if it's like even an LLM and they have it automated now, we've seen that that's entirely possible. And then they can socially engineer you and be like, hey, can you just send a little bit of this data? My boss is all over me right now. And
they're inside. There's that feeling that they're inside your organization because they're connected.
Yeah, they've got past
now,
the
is
front
that
gates.
legitimate coming from Slack? Would that be a legitimate connection and they're just in the background? Or is it just a phishing, like it looks legitimate coming from Slack, but it's really not?
Yeah, it could be coming legitimately from Slack to invite them to this shared channel. I mean, we've seen earlier in the year where hackers were able to use Google and Gmail to send real emails that, everything looks, feels, comes from Google, but in reality, it is redirecting them.
Oh, yeah.
Elsewhere.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. Oh, that's a good point. Wow. Yeah, and it says 64 in your report. It said 64% of respondents confirmed social engineering or solicitation attacks against their users via encrypted or informal apps like WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, Slack, Teams, or SMS. Wow, that's a large percentage.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And if you just think about, on a week-to-week basis, how many spam text calls, Telegram messages, WhatsApp messages you get, any of these channels that you're actively residing in, you maybe have been for some time, you'll get these pings, messages, links sent, attempts to social engineer you several times a week. And it's only really scaled up. And it's good that I think in the latest iOS update for iPhone, they're blocking more calls and texts coming inbound. Yes. But for a long time, it's just the door's wide open to any of these types of attacks.
Unbelievable. Well, hey, I want to thank you for your time. What is on the horizon for you and for Dune? What is coming up in the next year? Share. You've got public speaking events coming up. You guys have new offerings. What's on the horizon?
Yeah, I would say that, some of our most recent technology is our AI spearfishing platform. And we also have a phishing playground that one of our engineers created where end users can go create a voice clone of themselves, listen to it, play it back, and understand, what your own voice sounds like. You can hear what it's like when a hacker is going to mimic it, and you can have that experience fully on platform. So I'd say from Dune, just expect more things along those lines of, all those novel threats will have these fun educational experiences where you can play with the technology that the hackers are using and really understand it. And then also if you're, a security leader at your company, you'll be able to issue any of the attacks that we talked about today yourself on the platform.
That's phenomenal. That's a great educational tool. It's phenomenal. Well, I wish you guys all of the best, and we will definitely stay in touch. We will have you guys on again. I would love to have you come on and kind of demonstrate this, walk us through it like on a live stream, like certain simulations. That would be cool as well. So
I'd love to.
All right, man. Thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. Any parting thoughts? I always like to get kind of based on everything you're seeing. What should employees be doing? Is it really still the fundamentals? Because I've been doing this for decades and it still boils down to the same things we've been telling people for a long time that nobody does. Yeah. So is it still just, doing the fundamentals and actually applying them, actually doing them?
Yeah. I mean, even if you're tired, you have a long day at work or even, a long week, or you're an on-call engineer, you're up late into the night, whatever it may be, if you get that strange request, phone call, Teams call with a deepfake, always have your guard up if you're not expecting it. And maybe even if you are expecting it now, just always make sure that, you're thinking that this could be a threat actor, do your normal verification and assume that, the account that this user is reaching out to you on, if it were compromised, how would you actually identify that the person on the other end of the line is actually the person who you intend to talk to? Because that line between, reality and then some sort of deception is getting blurred more and more as we keep seeing these innovations in AI. So keep your guard up, even when you're, tired from work and it's been a long week. Always be ready, because that phishing email, that phishing voice call, the deepfake, it's always you'll get battered with these week over week. And it's, one's eventually going to catch you when your guard's down, when you're feeling tired. So yeah.
That's great advice. Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, because at the end of the day, today in light of AI, like they don't need to hack in with like advanced technical skills. They just need to log in as you, right? They just need for us to let them in. And they're looking for us. They're looking for the individual people and employees to be distracted, to be busy, to be tired, right? And it's a great point. Brilliant. So keep up the great work, man. Like, can't say enough about Dune. Great company, great organization. Encourage everybody to check you guys out. So we will talk again, my friend.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, buddy.